Let's talk a bit more about those universal credit changes. Earlier, we spoke to two Conservative MPs who've been vocal critics of the government over universal credit cuts. Iain Duncan Smith, the former Work and Pension Secretary who introduced the universal credit system and later resigned due to the government's benefit cuts. And Conservative MP Heidi Allen. We also spoke to two people who receive or have recently received universal credit, 25-year-old Victoria, who doesn't want us to use her surname, and 23-year-old Katie McLaren, who's a graduate with 2 jobs. First of all, Iain Duncan Smith, could you explain why universal credit is different and, in your view, better than the old system?
Well, very quickly, universal credit takes 6 of the benefits that are related to people going back to work, which are all at the moment at different rates of withdrawal, all very complex. It puts them all together. It has 2 elements to it. One is, as you cross into work, it has what's called the work allowance, which is rather like a tax allowance, which means you retain a certain amount of your benefit depending on whether you're, disabled or whether you're a lone parent. At that point, then it's tapered away as you go up the hours. So it keeps it simple. It allows you to adjust for individuals. And the taper is the same for all of those benefits within it. Whereas at the moment, you can have withdrawal rates of 95 pence in the pound, 60 pence in the pound, 70 pence. It'll always be the same rate. At the moment it's 65. The government's talking about reducing it now to 63 pence, which will make a difference. So those 2 elements mean it makes it simpler. It's easier to understand. It's automatic in the sense you don't have to keep reporting your changes in your salary. That's done automatically through the system, and that should take some of the stress out of that process.
So we're expecting the new Chancellor, Philip Hammond, to allow people who are on universal credit to be able to keep more of their benefits while in work, effectively to reverse changes that Mr Osborne, the previous incumbent, brought in. Do you support that?
I do. I have campaigned, as has Heidi, to put that money back into universal credit, because the thing about universal credit is it actually saves the Exchequer money by getting people into work and up the hours, because they end up being into the tax bracket earlier. They then pay tax, but they are themselves in a better position, and so they are more stable in work. And therefore taking the money out is slightly counterproductive. So one of the reasons I resigned from the government was that I felt that this was the wrong thing to do and I want to put it back. So this is really a down payment. I consider this is about 1/3 of the money that was taken out going back in. It's a start. It's not everything. And I'll continue to campaign to complete that process of actually investing in universal credit, because it has the dynamic and right effect on changing lives in the right way.
Heidi Allen, is this a watering down then of the austerity drive from the Conservative government?
It is, and I think it's a reflection of the way life is at the minute. It has been bumpier and more difficult to get out of the economic crisis, perhaps than people realise. The way I've always looked at it, because universal credit, it's the people that run the engine of this country. It's the shop workers, it's the teaching assistants, it's the people on modest incomes. You need to keep them in work. If they don't want to go into work, then the whole economy stops turning. So for me, it is a slight watering down. It's a welcome one. As Iain says, this is the beginning. It's a chunk of money, and we're so grateful for it. But it doesn't reverse all the cuts, and it will be good to see, see how the economy plays out in the next few years, whether we need to look at that again.
There is still a deficit. It's around 63 billion.
Yeah.
So why is it the right time to water down the austerity drive?
Because if these people don't stay in work and don't increase their work, then they, as Iain says, don't start putting taxes into the system. It's a snowball effect. You have to have everybody working and contributing to an economy. Okay. And if they stop working, then the whole thing slows down. Let
me introduce Katie McLaren. Katie's 23. She's a graduate. She has 2 jobs. She works in a bookshop and in a bar. Katie has been receiving £200 to £300 a month in universal credits until Monday. What happened on Monday, Katie?
Basically, they looked at the earnings I had rather than the hours that I had, and said that I'm basically over the bracket to claim any sort of benefits anymore.
So they say you're earning too much to get universal credit now?
Yeah, that's right.
Can you afford to live on the wages that you get from your 2 jobs?
I can afford to live at the moment. I can pay my rent and pay for food stuff, but I can't save for anything. I don't have any money to save.
Right. What happened to in terms of the principle of keeping more of your universal credit?
I think that, I understand that I have 2 jobs. A lot of people still struggle to actually find employment. But on the basis of not letting me know that my credit would just be cut on the day that I expected some money come in, was quite a shock.
Does it incentivise you to do more hours?
Yeah, I'll always try to do more hours. I'll always take on extra shifts if they offer for me, but it is incredibly hard to increase hours when you're on a certain hourly wage per week.
Sure. Victoria's got your 25, you two are on universal credit. Is it working for you?
It feels very restricted. It feels my options to going back to work and college are, what's the word? You know, they're very...
Limited.
Yeah, very limited, sorry. Like Katie was just saying, you know, she is working 2 jobs. She's just had hers cut on Monday because, you know, she's earning so much. Yeah, and that's the same problems I'm having. I'm going to go to apply for jobs 30 hours plus or 20 hours plus, and I'm finding out that I can only earn up to £160 a month. So basically I've been limited to 16 hours, 20 hours.
OK, well, let me bring Iain Duncan Smith back in and Heidi Allen back in. I mean, that is an issue, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. I think it's just quite difficult sometimes to know exactly what the circumstances are, but I think the issue around the point at which you break free of the benefit system is really where we are. In other words, the benefit is tapering out till finally you're off it.
Yeah.
Now, there is another element here which is beyond universal credit, and that's the rise in the national living wage. Now, the government is committed to get that up to £9 an hour, and that comes from a low base of below £6 an hour when we first came in. And that will have a dramatic effect. That will affect those who are moving off universal credit. They will actually find their salaries and incomes rise faster as a result of that. So there's another positive that goes in that. But, you know, there is a reality that you're not meant to stay on benefits forever. There is a point when you are earning more, you break free, and that's a positive thing. And I'm pleased to see that, you know, people want to work more hours. With regards to the issues around incentivising you to go on, I mean, universal credit has a greater incentive to get people to work more hours because it's simple, it's easy to understand, it's automatic. And so if either of them are having an issue with that, then they need to sit down and talk to the job centre advisor who now stays with them all the way through those hours to check that actually the calculations that are being made are correct and that they've got everything that they've announced correctly. To
Victoria, I think you want to come back in. You're shaking your head in disagreement.
Yeah, it's saying it's to help out and it's catered more to us, and it's the complete opposite. It's very robotic. It's not catered to the person. You know, each person has different needs, whether it's a single mother, whether it's somebody that, you know, is a carer for a parent, whether it's somebody that, you know, works part-time, young single male. It's all the same rules for everybody. You're only allowed to earn up to a certain amount, whereas the incentive to go back to work, if as soon as you earn up to £160, it is deducted straight from your universal credit. There's no getting better or earning anymore or getting a better career because it's stopped at £160.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I think I know where you are now. What you're talking about is the work allowance that allows you to earn a certain amount of money before it starts getting taken away. Actually, you may not have had this experience, but under the existing system which universal credit replaces, you didn't have the same level of allowance inside tax credits. In other words, you would be locked to only a 16-hour amount of work because you would lose so much after that. The point is, you will not lose at any faster rate as the hours go by. I know it's a bit more difficult, but each of the categories of people, yourself, if somebody was there with disabilities, they have different amounts of money they can earn before that's taken away, reflecting their own condition, etc. And the first person into work, such as yourself, would actually therefore be better off under this system than they would have been under tax credits.
Final thought from Heidi Allen. The Chancellor is also expected to bring forward the raising of the threshold at which people start paying tax, which will not help those on the lowest incomes.
Well, it will, because it will help everybody. I mean, what Iain was arguing for, and I think he was right, was rather than all that money going into lifting the tax allowances, we could have pumped it all into universal credit. That hasn't happened. But actually, we've got a bit of both. That raising of the tax allowance threshold will be for everybody in this country. We've also put in £1 billion to help young ladies like we've been talking to this morning. So I think we've got 2 bites of the cherry, plus, as Iain says, the national minimum wage going up. It really is good news. It's not all the money we wanted, but we are realistic about the economy we're in. You know, listening to Katie, I mean, good on her, 2 jobs, that's fantastic. Yeah. But she knows herself, I can pay my rent now, I'm okay. But the government isn't there to pay your savings for you. So brilliant, and good luck to Katie, good luck to both of you. But it's working through that transition, and universal credit will support them, you know, and just drifting them slowly off that benefit as they get more hours, and when the wage goes up, hopefully they should feel the benefit of that.